What's up, everybody? Ryan Thomas here, live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Once again, bring you another edition of the Thomas Take, and safe to say I'm very excited to start with this one. Brandon Koch will be joining me on the show, a guy that I've wanted to have on the show for quite some time, someone that I've really enjoyed working with in regards to collaborating with his Facebook groups in regards to the Buffalo Bills and the Buffalo Sabres. Brandon's a very I'd say individual, someone that definitely loves to put his say out there, writes great articles, great sports writer, and has really built himself up at a young age, younger gentleman than me. And I'm pretty proud of the young gent to say that he's going to be on the show is good for him, and it's good for me. And I knew that at some point I just wanted to make sure that I could get him on. Narrowing down a time is always the toughest part about getting a guest on a show. Narrowing down a time that works for him, works for me. I'm definitely excited to have him on. Really enjoyed creating this YouTube, expanding this YouTube channel, having the guests that I've had on, Samuel White, Brandon Koch, and tonight at 9, I'll be having another guest on from the gruelingtruth.net, Stephanie Wilson. She's very amped up, very fired up to join me on the show. She definitely has a passion for Buffalo sports, as does Brandon, in regards to whether it's the Buffalo Bills or the Buffalo Sabres. Brandon is somebody that definitely likes to cover both. Stephanie is really into the baseball world as well, being that she's from Quincy, Massachusetts. She'll be joining me to talk about the Boston Red Sox and much, much more. So 2 shows tonight, 2 o'clock, obviously right now. Brandon Koch will be joining me in just a moment. I put out a lot of stuff on my Twitter lately, at Thomas Takeover. You can follow me on Twitter. As far as Periscope videos, my take on George St. Pierre versus Nate Diaz, as well as what else did I put on there? My take on Baker Mayfield going to the Browns. I already kind of covered that a little bit, but I wanted to put that take on there because it's a hot take for sure. Definitely excited. I've gained a lot of followers on Twitter within the last few months, and I've really enjoyed communicating with each and every one of my followers, whether they're a Bills fan or a Browns fan or just a sports fan in general. My podcast is definitely one that I want to get as many people involved in this as possible, joining me on the show and collaborating with me. And Brandon and Stephanie were very nice enough to agree to joining me on the show, taking time out of their day and having them on and joining me. Albeit, Brandon's case, he'll be on for about a half hour, but that'll definitely allow us to get into somewhat of the nitty-gritty of some of the big sports topics inside the world of the Buffalo Bills. So Buffalo Bills, Buffalo Sabres, just to give a rundown of what Brandon and I will be talking about on the show for those of you that are tuning in ahead of time. I always like to give kind of a rundown what people can expect on the show. So let's see here. So Brandon Koch, 716 Sports Blog. He's created many Facebook groups to rally the troops as far as the Buffalo Bills fans. And I definitely have enjoyed having him on. I will enjoy having him on, I should say. He'll definitely be on again, too. This won't be the last time. You can follow him on Twitter at 716 Sports Post. 716 Sports Post. He's definitely posting stuff almost every day, as am I. We're going to give our thoughts on the Buffalo Bills draft. We're going to give our thoughts on Russ Brandon and the era ending. Our thoughts on that. McCarron, Peterman, Allen, who will start the most games at quarterback in 2018 for the Buffalo Bills, and talk about Brandon and some of his goals and aspirations and how he got into this wild, crazy profession that is sports journalism. So I'm actually going to give Brandon a call right now and get him hooked up to the Thomas Take. Not here to take part. It's here to take over. It's going to take over the show.
All circuits are busy. Please try your call.
Circuits are busy. That's weird. All right. Well, he said he'd call me around 2:10. And here he is, Brandon Koch. What's up, Brandon? How you doing?
How are you?
Good. I got you on speakerphone. I'm gonna have you join me via phone. We're on live, and hopefully, when I introduce you, I didn't mispronounce your last name. How do you pronounce your last name?
It's Cook.
Cook. Okay. So, Brandon, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I've actually been wanting to have you on for quite some time, ever since I was, practically ever since I got the software together to have guests join me on the show and record it live. You were one of the first people I wanted to contact. Tell us about yourself, for the listeners and for the viewers of the show. Tell us about yourself and some of the things that you got going on right now.
All right. Well, first off, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Whenever I have the free time, usually when I play a little video games, I'm always listening to the Thomas Take. So it's always good. But I'm 76sportspost.com. I'm basically the editor, basically the creator of the site. My cousin is really good at graphic design. Just this. A simple layout of it. I started in August of 2017, and my one friend Chris, who is posts bills now and then, mostly quarterbacks, but that's what I got going on. And we're actually cover the Bison's home games, and I'm there once in a while. Obviously, can't make every single one of them, but it's cool. It's cool. The summer somewhat goes by a little slow without no football or hockey, but going to Koch feels really helps.
Yeah, and I've followed your stuff as far as, I see you constantly, like myself. We're constantly, what it's like to have to get your stuff out there. It's like as soon as it's published, you want it out there. You want as many people to see it and take it in. Tell the viewers and listeners as far as like what the 716 Sports blog is about. What would you, in a general statement, what would you say it's about?
That's a good question. Really, it's just creating conversations. There's a lot of opinions out there, and I know you and I, just by seeing some of your posts and what you're saying, obviously we don't agree on everything. That's perfect, because if everyone agrees on everything, there's nothing to talk about.
Right.
So, I was really high on Baker Mayfield. I think he has a chance to be really special, and you do not like it.
Yeah.
To me, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, it creates open discussion. It creates debate, which is always interesting. And there's things that, people, they listen to my show and they say, well, why don't you like Baker Mayfield? And they watch one of the episodes I did on it, and they can relate to some of the reasons. And then I listen to their response as to why they might like him, and I can agree to it. So it's kind of like a two-sided argument. You could see it going one way, you can see it going the other. And the great thing about sports is we'll find out. We'll find out.
Yeah, and part of my play is going right directly to the fans. And I appreciate, all the Bills and Sabres groups on Facebook and whatnot. It's really difficult that I've learned to try to build a foundation on Twitter, but I'm trying. But
right.
I appreciate all those admins on Facebook for approving the post and allowing my post to be on there in some form. I'm not a Toronto Blue Jays fan. I hate the Blue Jays, but there's a
right.
Yeah, there's a goodbye to the affiliate. So they have a message board, a forum. They let me post, prospects, and they're interested in that, and I appreciate that.
You have to take every opportunity, and that's one thing I've learned is even. I mean, at one point I was commentating amateur boxing at these small arenas and stuff like that fit like maybe 100, 200 people, and most of it was boxing from like ages 13 to 16, which is like against everything I stand for. I understand, you know, head injuries and stuff just as well as anybody, and seeing that, it's like, well, I had to take it, and that's kind of, you're kind of at that point, right, where you're like, well, I have to take the opportunities that I've earned, right?
Yeah, yeah, and you know, people agree and disagree with some of the stuff that I write or talk about, or you know, why are you writing about this, or
Right.
you know, so on and off. You know, you gotta have stuff to talk about, and this is such a crazy. While it is a small market, it's a crazy market. You know, there's a ton of it. It's great. The fans are great. It's nice.
So, if you don't mind me asking, Brandon, one of the first questions I wanted to ask you, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 23.
23, all right. And I mean, as far as being 23, and I'm not just saying this to quote unquote, you know, kiss your butt or anything like that, but I would say, I don't know what my say means to you, but I'd say you're doing pretty well. You know, for someone that's 23, you have your own sports website, you're sharing and posting articles every day. And as you mentioned, the graphic designing aspect of it, I've seen some of the graphics that you have on your webpage, and I like them a lot. You're doing really well, man. I think you definitely have a bright future in this, and I appreciate I appreciate your effort, because I understand it. You know, on my end of things, you're promoting your articles, I'm promoting my podcast, and it takes a lot of persistence and energy to stay at it. So to start the show, I'd say keep doing what you're doing, for sure.
Yeah, very greatly appreciate that. It's not really a grind.
No,
it kind of is, because I enjoy it. That's how you know,
right,
you're supposed to be doing it. But you know, it's just a different. I did this back in August to bring a different form for fans, because we don't like. I respect the Buffalo News guys, but they could have an agenda. You know, they're not supposed to be fans, this and that. They're professionals and whatnot. That's what I'm trying to get to. But you know, a lot of this stuff is way too negative, and I just want to be fair.
Right.
And you know, I don't know if you heard. I would think you would have The Athletic
yes.
all over the place in the country. I think The Athletic is coming to Buffalo. And,
oh, wow.
Know, that may as well hurt us, but you know, people are not in this area. I don't think they're really buying into that subscription where you have to pay to read content. So you know,
yeah, it's one of those things that I definitely agree with you in that aspect, because I've actually had people tell me multiple times that they like listening to my show over even ones on the radio, because I come across as a normal guy, where they know when they tune in, they're not going to get something that's fake. They're going to get something that's honest and real. And I definitely see that with your articles. You're not shooting from the hip, so to speak. You're actually formulating an opinion that was processed and dissected and put to paper, which that art has kind of been lost in sports media. I'd say most of the time, you know, the phrase clickbait, people just put things on the internet just so people can click them and rack up their views, where you're someone who's like, hey, this is my honest opinion, and I'm going to use stats and information to back it up, and, you know, take it for what it is.
Yeah, and some of these guys I know, I'd like, listen, I most of the time I disagree with Mike Harrington or whatever. He's like, oh, we don't post about rumors. Well, the Buffalo News kind of does. Like, you know, you don't, but the Buffalo News does, and that's what I do. I mean, rumors, reports, whatever, it matters in the sports world. I mean, it's coming from somewhere,
right?
And you know, you try to dissect those rumors and the fans. I mean, you know, Bill's Mafia Facebook page. That's a great Facebook group, and you know, they post rumors all the time, all different. But yeah, thank you for your kind words. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. And there's definitely a lot of pages out there that some of them I've butted heads with. There's no secret to that. Uh, but it's more so. I think that if you're writing, whether you're writing an article, creating your own website, or creating your own podcast, it's almost like if you're going to take that avenue, you have to understand that you're getting people to tune in or to read something that you're creating. So it's your responsibility in a way to give them something that's worth their time. Give them something that says when they're done, well, that wasn't a waste of my time. I think that's the greatest compliment that someone could give me or someone of your position, to say, hey, I read your article and that was really informative. It was a pleasure reading and it wasn't a waste of time. I feel like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but like it's perfect what you said. Like again, I don't want this to be, we barely know each other. I mean, this is our first time actually talking.
right.
So like, and I'm not just gonna, I'm not trying to kiss butt, but like your UFC stuff, boxing stuff, I'm not huge on that. But for the hell of it, I listen to you, and it's like, okay, I can try to, it's informing, and even if it's based on your opinion,
right.
Oh, okay, I don't know much about it, but it's definitely helping. I watched the whole Mayweather McGregor thing. That's it basically. But when you post on Spreaker or your YouTube channel about the UFC and boxing, I'm going to tune in.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. And that's what it's about, man. You have to find a way. Like, I know that there's not as many boxing fans as there used to be. And I know that MMA and the UFC and all of it is still relatively new. So what I try to do on the show is try to be as informative, but also throw my opinion in there as much as I can and just educate. And I think that's what you do in your articles well, is that you educate. There's a difference between opinionating, putting out your opinion, but putting out your opinion while educating. I'm big on that, and I'm glad that you thought that of the podcast episodes. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, like I said, I really appreciate what you're doing. I think it's good stuff, and you should keep at it. I've always said that there's nothing that is unattainable. If you keep pushing, keep grinding, you can make something out of nothing, and I think you're doing that for sure, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. The same team.
Yeah, thanks. So let's dive right into it. As far as the 2018 Buffalo Bills NFL draft, obviously we know where we're at now. We got Josh Allen. We drafted Tremaine Edmonds. Both players were selected in the first round, traded 2 second-round picks to get Josh Allen, and then also taking guys like Harrison Phillips and the guard from Virginia Tech. And what is your assessment? Like, when draft weekend was over, what was the one word that would really pop into your mind in regards to the Buffalo Bills draft?
It's actually 3 words for me.
3 words? All right, we'll go with that.
Be determined, actually. I think, and that's my assessment for every draft. I love the drafts. I've been really into it since I was maybe 12, 13 years old, and it is to be determined, because I got comfortable knowing that it would be Josh Allen from the combine. And while in my only 2 mock drafts, which, again, for consultation purposes, none of them I had Bills going to Josh Allen, just because of what I was hearing. But to me, Josh Allen could be their form of a Cam Newton. I think while Cam was in the SEC and Alabama, facing defenses like Alabama and LSU at the time, they had the same completion percentage, which I think completion percentage is overblown. I think that's a huge, talking point when it comes to Josh Allen. I think he can be their Cam Newton. And believe me, I hope people believe me when I say this. Of course, Sal, I love Sal Capaccio. They're trying to build it like Carolina Panthers. And
right.
I can see Josh Allen like a Cam Newton. I think the Tremaine that linebacker is going to be a beast, and he's 20 years old. That is a very good core for that defense when you're talking about Trey and you're talking about Edmonds. And also you can't forget about Hyde and Poyer because they're still relatively young.
Right.
So but the one thing that I did not like was they kind of waited on the wide receiver there. But looking at they had a ton of needs and they couldn't fill them all in one draft.
Right. That's a really good point. I never really thought of the wide receiver thing, that they did kind of wait a little bit, and then they, like you said, they had a ton of needs, and you can't fill them all in one draft when they made the trades that they made. Really, I mean, for me, I did the segment on my show. It's called 32 Picks in 32 Days. And I did team by team, pick by pick, like before there was, well, it was actually right after the Jets moved up from 6 to 3. So I wanted to make that, once the trades were done, or I thought they were done, I tried to do it pick by pick, team by team. And I did have Buffalo taking Josh Allen at 12, just because I thought that out of all the quarterbacks, he had the most upside. He played in the bad weather. And I honestly thought that Rosen, Darnold, and Mayfield would be gone at that point. But that didn't happen. What actually happened was Buffalo was set to pick 12, but then they traded up to 7 and took Josh Allen. And then the Cardinals took Josh Rosen 10th. Were you shocked at the time watching the draft that Buffalo selected Josh Allen over Josh Rosen?
I had that feeling. I had the feeling all along. I looked through my Twitter and it was nothing but Rosen. And, I was in the living room with my family. They're like, okay, Rosen, he's there. Take him. And I'm like, I was just quiet. I'm more comfortable now with Josh Allen being, the future quarterback. I love Rosen. I put him and Baker as 1A, 1B. What happens with him in Arizona, I'm going to be watching very closely.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't shocked. I mean, not like all the other Bills fans.
Right.
The aftermath of that pick. It's funny. I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but it seems like there's a whole bunch of Buffalo fans that have one opinion, and that's it. Oh, we need to get Rose. Or
right.
As soon as Robin Leonard came in, traded, because it was a first-round pick, all the fans got on Robin Leonard. Well, Robin Leonard's not a very good goaltender. He's not a bad goaltender. But they got on him because Emery gave that first-round pick.
Right.
And it was a bad relationship from the start. So it seems like, when there's a consensus opinion in this town, that's it. And I think, Josh Allen, you got to get Josh Allen now. I mean, Rosen. And it was Allen. I wasn't surprised. No.
That's a really great point, and I've actually talked with another guest that I've had on the show, my friend Samuel White, about how the Buffalo media, and I'm not trying to take a stab at anybody by any means. It's just reality that what the media says, people just believe it. They think that that's what should happen. If someone on one of the radio stations says the Bills should take Josh Rosen, and it's somebody that has X amount of followers on Twitter and does the daily radio show, that's what the fans think is right, when really every fan, I think, if you really want to dive into it and if you really want to know who they should take, should watch maybe an hour of film, or if they really love football that much and they want to have an opinion, they should watch more, and then they might actually not just be more educated, but they would know who they really genuinely want, rather than just listening to one guy, But
I agree with that. And there are fans that go on. They actually watch the film, and
right.
They watch this obviously not professional, but they do their work. And there are the people that they drive to work in the morning, and then they drive. Maybe they go out to lunch, and they're driving, and then they come home from work, and it's all on the radio, or maybe they read the newspaper. Once they get into work, and it's like the constant narrative of that same quarterback, or this quarterback's completion percentage. I mean, Josh Allen's completion percentage was beaten like a dead horse.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Like that really killed off a lot of fans. I mean, you make a good point.
Yeah, I think that his completion percentage was beaten like a dead horse. I mean, I know that there's different eras in football. Like the era that we have grown up in is a pass happy league, and that there's more pass attempts now than there's ever been, and all the numbers and all that stuff. But there was a time where people said that running backs should not be drafted in the top 5, that running backs shouldn't be even drafted in the first round. And then there's this wave of running backs that are very, very talented. The Ezekiel Elliott's, the Melvin Gordons, the Todd Gurley's, and the Leonard Fournette's, and the Christian McCaffrey's, and the Saquon Barkley's of the world that did deserve to be drafted in those rounds. And people think that it's such a pass-happy league. It is, but we're in an era where a 56% completion percentage isn't great, but the amount of attempts is higher, so there's more of a chance of actually throwing incompletions. It's just simple, like common sense statistics. I'm not a math whiz by any stretch of the imagination, but I know if you try to throw the ball more, you're going to throw more incompletions, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
What did you think? Oh yeah, you continue. My bad.
No, go on.
What did you think as far as like what was the most ridiculous take or spin on that as far as that you saw, people talking about Josh Allen? What were your thoughts as far as like you might have been scrolling down your news feed or your Twitter feed one day and you saw someone talk about the 56% completion percentage and you just thought, wow, this is just crazy.
Yeah, it was mainly on the completion percentage, but also on his eye.
Right.
I think a lot of people thought just because he can, throw 7 yards down the field. Well, to me, that I want that quarterback with the arm strength, not because of the 7 yards down the field. I mean, I've seen that. I've seen him do that in the Senior Bowl and in the combine. But can he has the arm strength to throw it across the field on a sideline pass and hit that window.
Right.
Where, say, Tyrod Taylor couldn't have done that because he doesn't have that strong enough arm to hit that sideline window throw.
Right.
So, to me, the arm strength, again, was blown out of proportion. Oh, why do we need a quarterback that throws 7 yards on the field? No, the arm strength is, he has the arm strength now to fit it in those tight windows. Whereas the quarterback, again, I don't mean to bring down Tyrod, but
yeah, no, it's fair.
Like
I mean,
or Edwards couldn't do that.
Right, and the thing that I noticed the most when watching Josh Allen's tape, or whatever you want to call it, is that he can make throws that not many people alive. Not even Tom Brady could make throws like that. And I'm not saying Josh Allen's better than Tom Brady by any stretch of the imagination, but I would also say, and I think people would agree with this, that although Tom Brady is great and he has great timing and he can definitely freeze a defense and dissect a defense, he's probably the most unathletic quarterback ever, especially to be successful. And Josh Allen is very athletic. I think his mobility is actually one of his biggest strengths that people are sleeping on.
Absolutely, and I bring back to that Cam Newton there.
Right.
And I mean, he's not. I think Tom Brady is obviously, we've seen his combine run, we've seen how he's run.
Right.
He is probably one of the best to maneuver in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Newton can extend plays. I think that's what Josh Allen can eventually do. We'll see coming up in training camp and even mini camps, how he progresses. But
right.
yeah, I think you're right when it comes to Allen and that.
As far as like the latest news outside of the draft, there was some news out there that suddenly, actually, I didn't see it coming. Was that Russ Brannon, the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres president, or whatever you want to call it, was basically they said he resigned. I think he was forced to resign, or he resigned because he didn't want to be fired. What is your take on this entire awkward Russ Brandon situation?
Uh, I mean, it's tough. I wasn't a big Russ Brandon fan in terms of the football side. I wanted him to stay away from the football side.
Right.
As far away from the football side, I think he's very talented on the business side.
Mm-hmm.
To have, I think it was 2014 and 15, the record for season ticket sales, season ticket number was an all-time high. I think that definitely takes skill, especially during the droughts. But what's going on here with the women and all that, it's bad. I mean, it's not a good look. And I think when the Palulas last week put out the statement that Russ was out, you can tell their reaction to it and what they thought of Russ Brandon when they did not even say thank you, Russ, for your contribution to these organizations.
Right.
To me, that says a lot, and how bothered they were by this. They had their own investigation from their attorneys, their lawyers on Brandon. So it's very telling that they did not say thank you for your contribution. He was there a long time.
Right. He was there for over 20 years. Almost 30 years. I think he joined the team in 95, 96 maybe. Might be wrong on that. I actually think he joined the team in 97, but he was like some sort of an intern or something like that. But yeah, my thing on it is with Russ Brandon, if I were to dissect like the Russ Brandon era, I would see him as like during the time when Ralph Wilson was his health was failing, and the Bills had to transition the team to someone, and Russ Brandon was really the only guy that was willing and able to take that spot, almost running the entire organization at one point. He almost came across as if he was like trying to be, and I don't know if you're a big baseball fan, but to me, he almost came across as if he was trying to be like Billy Beane, where he was going to make these hardball decisions that would shatter the mold of the game, when really he was just a marketing guy. As you mentioned, he was a great marketing guy, because there's been no team the last 17 years that didn't make the playoffs like the Bills. They didn't make the playoffs for 17 years, and yet they had the best season ticket sales. They had the highest season ticket sales in their franchise history. Their training camp that I've been to like the past 6 years was mobbed practically. I mean, there were thousands of fans there that I know for a fact no other fan base is like that, where their fans are in the thousands at a practice where the players are in shorts and a t-shirt with a helmet on. So in that respect, I give him credit for that. And he helped kind of brand the team a little bit. But when there was that transition period where he had to run the team, it was bad. Like I went back and looked at it, and I'm like, wow, he just was not in the right frame of mind to be in that position.
I mean, the hiring of Doug Marrone, I'm not a huge Doug Marrone fan at all.
Right.
Even back when he was GM.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he got Eric Wood.
Yeah, he got Eric Wood, and I mean, they drafted Aaron Maben, and I remember when they drafted Aaron Maben and Eric Wood, they had the press conference where they both held up the one jerseys, and he made it seem like he got like, I don't know, if I were to compare it to, like, he made it seem like he got like 2 future Hall of Famers, and it was like these guys they haven't even played a down yet, and Aaron Maben really only had 1 good year in college, and Eric Wood had knee injuries even back then. So it was a huge stretch at the time, and even now, obviously, to say, oh, well, we just got 2, linchpin franchise players that, Eric Wood was here a long time, and he had a really good career, but Aaron Maben was obviously a bust. So.
Yeah, and I think, that's this background business. and I think he did a good job at that. But the football side, I always gave him grief for it, and I think a lot of fans kind of crucified him for it. But yeah, and it's just telling about that situation with the women.
Right.
The owners did not thank him for
right.
being out there last.
Not even say, hey, thanks for the time, what you did for the city and the organization. He was just basically spit out the door, basically. I mean, thrown out the door. Like, what's that?
Yeah, he was out.
Yeah, he was just thrown aside. As far as like and I've done this on my own. I've really tried to think scenarios, and sometimes I like to look at the schedule and be like, well, if this happens and if this happens, because that's what this stuff is at this time of year. It's all speculation. And what I've kind of thought of is like, what point in the season is it possible that Josh Allen could start, or out of the three quarterbacks, AJ McCarron, Nathan Peterman, and Josh Allen, which one will start the most games? If I were to ask you that question, who do you think will start the most games at quarterback for the Buffalo Bills in 2018?
Oh, man. When you sent me this up list, I wanted you to say, I plead the fifth. All three of them have a shot at this.
Right.
All three of them have a shot at this. I think Peterman, is Allen, Allen, blah, 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 has to, earn it, obviously. But again, this whole, I'll get back to the opinionated Buffalo fans, and that's it.
Right.
There's a AJ McCarron fan base here because they have not seen him yet. Just like last year, there was a huge Nathan Peterman fan base last year because they've already seen Tyra. So it is going to be crazy. It's going to be a long summer with the quarterbacks. Growing up, I've always looked at the schedule. I'm like, I had my mind set on, a record. But you can't anymore because every year is totally different. But I'll say this. If they can get through the first half of the season at 500 or maybe a game above, they're in good shape that last half to make some noise and maybe get back to the dance. But Josh Allen starting, I think, once an injury happens, I think this could be the redshirt year. Now, I'll probably be wrong. I'm always wrong when it comes to these month out predictions.
Right.
But I would say it could be a redshirt year.
Yeah, I would agree. I think much like the only situation that I could see replaying itself if Josh Allen actually ends up playing is one that we saw a couple years ago with Jared Goff and the Rams. They were already kind of far out of it, and they didn't really have a lot to play for. So they were like, well, week 11, let's throw him out there, see what he can do. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong on this. It's just in my mind that this might be real, but I'm not sure if it was. But he played against Seattle, and it was a terrible choice of his first start. He was playing against the Legion of Boom that was still together at the time. It was in Seattle. I really hope that they don't make the same mistake twice of putting a quarterback in the wrong position at the wrong time, like they did with Nathan Peterman, I believe, last year against the Chargers. If Josh Allen's going to play, put him in a matchup that's kind of a gimme. Now, not saying I want him to not play against a good team, but I don't want him to play against a great team and play really, really bad. And as you said multiple times, Buffalo fans see one thing and they're on that opinion like a fly on a you-know-what. So it really, if they put him in and he plays, like, let's just say he plays against the Patriots and plays pretty badly, as well as I do, the fans will turn on him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like the Peterman, yeah.
Right. And I mean, I don't think that's fair. I'm hoping that AJ McCarron is the starter early on, and I hope he plays well enough to that, like you said, Josh Allen does have that redshirt season, because I do think he needs it. He definitely needs to develop and learn the ins and out game of the NFL. I want to get your take, and I didn't prepare this question in the set list. I want to give you, I want to, your one final take. I got to ask you a question. Did by any chance, I know you're a big hockey guy, by any chance, did you hear the WGR 550 Instigators interview with Rasmus Dahlin?
I did.
You did? Okay. Now,
I did. It was awkward, but I watched the beginning of the Instigators today, and I guess Andrew Peters, Craig Rivet, they wanted because they are former players. They wanted to ask him questions from the player's point of view. I think Andrew Peters said something like, "Oh, well, we didn't want to ask him a question that any other reporter could ask him. We wanted to ask him questions about him just getting into the locker room because players are not going to ask, what's your workout regimen? Like, they're going to ask him locker room stuff." Now, it was awkward.
right.
Other than that, I mean, I see both sides, I guess.
Right. I thought it was really awkward, and I thought some of the questions they asked were like borderline ignorant. I mean, they were asking him about Ivan Drago and like it. I mean, I'm sure he doesn't really focus on any of that stuff. I mean, it was kind of corny, and I don't know. I hope that they somewhat sent him like, "Oh, our bad. We'll get you on next time, and it'll be better." Type thing. I just didn't like. I was really anticipating that interview, thinking that it would be good, and I came away thinking like, "Wow, that was really bad." It was like my first thought. Within like the first 2 minutes, too, I thought to myself, "I don't know if this is gonna go well." But
yeah, I mean that about like jersey numbers, and I know today Peters was like, "Oh, he's definitely gonna remember us when he comes there." Yeah, but you don't know what that kid's thinking.
yeah, they asked him if he shopped at IKEA, if he preferred Swedish meatballs over something else, and they asked him about his dad, and some of the questions I'm like, okay, that's okay, and then they'd ask another question and be like, what? Like, what are we talking about? I thought that like a good question would be like, if you're set to, it's presumed that you're going to be drafted by the Buffalo Sabres. Tell us what you know about Jack Eichel. Tell us what you know about Phil Housley being a hockey Hall of Fame defenseman. Questions like that I thought they'd ask, but they just didn't. And like you said, maybe they thought, they didn't want to. Like they said, they said that they didn't want to ask questions that were like reporter-esque, and I guess that would qualify, but I don't know. I just thought it could have been better. I was disappointed.
Oh yeah, it could have been. Yeah, it was definitely awkward. You can kind of tell by his Darlene's pauses and that, like he was kind of like at the start of the match, he was like,
right?
That's how you know when you have the guest kind of, I'm not gonna say spook, but just awkward.
Right, and like there's obviously English, he's obviously not from here. So there's certain words that like they were saying that you could tell he didn't know what those words were, and it's not because he's stupid, it's because he's not from here. Like we talk differently than every country talks in a different way, even every state. Like I go to different states and people are like, "Where are you from? Are you from like Canada? Are you from New York?" And I'm like, "I'm from New York." And they're like, "Oh, okay, I see that." And I'm like, "Really?" Like I don't think of it until someone says that, where it's kind of the same thing with Rasmus Dahlin. Like I thought he spoke pretty well and was composed and was excited to talk to those guys. And then they just kind of asked him questions that just fell kind of flat. But it is what it is. I thought it was a good chuckle for sure.
Oh yeah, they got on Twitter, definitely.
Right. And I kind of chimed in on that, and I'm just like, you know what, I'll hold off. But Brandon, it was awesome having you on. I definitely want to have you on again. I always tell people it's not just one time that you'll be on. I definitely want to have you on again and make you a recurring guest on the show. Check out Brandon. Brandon, give the viewers and listeners some of your contact info to check out some of your work.
716sportspost.com. I'm at Brandon J. Cookie or at 716sportspost on Twitter. And yeah, thank you, Thomas. The Thomas takeover. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, Ryan Thomas with Brandon. I'm very excited to have you on again, man. It was a treat having you on.
Yeah, anytime. The summer's here. I'll have a little bit more time. So anytime, just let me know. I appreciate it.
Sure. Take care, man. It was great talking to you.
Thank you.
Take care. So that was Brandon Koch, man. Great. I don't want to say young man because he's only 23 and I'm 26. It's not like I'm like a lot older than him, but I feel older than him. I don't know why. I just feel like I'm older than I am. I don't know. Maybe it's because I have to pay bills and do grown up stuff now. But Brandon's a good guy. I really enjoyed having him on. Enjoyed talking to him about the Bills. He had a lot of interesting things to say in regards to the Buffalo Bills fans. Sometimes these fans, and I love them all, but they get set on one idea and they don't really do their research. And it's just like little tiny things. If you just kind of looked stuff up or read more info, more stats, more film, whatever you want to call it, the opinion would be more informative and more educated. Everyone was saying Rosen. And as he mentioned, that was never the case, really. So very interesting stuff. Brandon Koch on the show and Ryan Thomas, obviously the host of the Thomas Take, yours truly, coming to you live on YouTube at 9 o'clock tonight. I will have Stephanie Wilson on from thegruelingtruth.net. Stephanie is a very passionate sports fan, passionate about the Bills football, the Bills Mafia, as well as the Boston Red Sox. So we got three things in common, both sports right, both like the Bills, both like the Red Sox. I'm very excited to have her on and to talk to her. She's going to be the first, I called her the first chick to be on, and she got a kick out of that. The first lady that'll be on the show ever. So it's always good to have, interesting takes, and she's got a lot. So I'm very excited to have her on. Everybody, Ryan Thomas, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, was joined by Brandon Koch. You can replay it, re-listen to the video, re-watch the video on the Thomas Take YouTube channel. Let's go Buffalo, everybody. A lot to be optimistic about. Let's not be so negative, Debbie Downers like Jerry Sullivan of the Buffalo News. Let's actually embrace the fact there's a lot of positivity headed our way at One Bills Drive and at Seymour Knox Plaza downtown in Buffalo. Rasmus Dahlin on the way, Josh Allen, Jermaine Edmonds in the building, Harrison Phillips in the building. They had a great draft. Brandon Beane deserves a lot more credit than what he has been given by Buffalo media and by Buffalo fans. I'm Ryan Thomas. It was the Thomas Take. Take care, everybody.